Got this Lincoln Continental back in the garage. It's here for rear brakes. The brakes are grinding. Another thing is she was having troubles starting the car, real slow crank. So yeah, I just listened to it and I told her that sounds like a weak battery. And I came out here just to verify that the alternator is charging, and it is. So I told her take it to AutoZone, get a brand new battery, and that should be it. Alright, so she takes it to AutoZone. The guy comes out to listen to it, and he hears the car cranking, and he's like, oh, that sounds like your starter. So she told the guy, alright, but my mechanic told me to just put a battery on it, so I just want a battery for right now. So the car just got here, okay, after putting a battery in it. Now this thing had a really slow, sluggish crank. I could just tell that the battery was being strained. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. And let's listen to it cranking now. That thing cranks over quickly and sounds normal. This is how these people at AutoZone, if they don't know what they're talking about, they make people buy parts that they don't need. I told her, go there for a battery. Your car needs a battery. And right off the bat, the guy tried to say that her starter's bad. And for people who don't know any better, it just sends them down a freaking rabbit hole of wasting money. But I'm glad to see that the battery did fix the issue. It starts up and it cranks up fast and sounds good, and I'm happy with it. So I'm going to go ahead and knock out the rear brakes now because the rear brakes are grinding. So we have new pads and rotors for the back of the car. One thing I noticed is the rotor still has these little things, and these normally come from a factory to hold the rotor in place while they're assembling the car. I mean, it's not too common that people put these back on after you replace them. It almost makes me think that these rotors are original rotors, and I believe this is a 2001. Look at the brake pads that came off of it. So that's one of them, and here goes the other one. A big chunk was missing, and then the whole friction material just fell right off of the backing plate with the rust that got between them. It's crazy, huh? Now I'm on the other side of the car, the side that actually has the bad brakes. I got the wheel off, and look at this, is the chrome plating on the rim. Just gonna go ahead and get this off of here because you can see how loose it is. This thing would cause a crazy amount of noise. So that's good enough. I just wanted to get that big piece out of here. Here's the inside pad. You can see how the pad's destroyed, rotor is destroyed, and here's the outside pad, more rust jacking. You can see the friction material just completely lifted off of the backing plate. And while you're in here cleaning up the hub, don't forget to clean up all the metal shavings off of the ABS sensor. You can see it's collected them. And there we go, we're all set on this side. This thing got new tires on it all the way around. Nice. Alright, so it's time to take it out for a test drive, and that'll be it for this one. Alright, so the brakes feel good. No more noise or anything like that. One thing I noticed that's really interesting about this car is the actual speedometer is up top, and this is just like a mirror. That's like really interesting. That's crazy. So this piece right here, the display is actually back there, and so are the little needles. But the actual numbers on the tachometer and all that stuff is actually up here. So if I put my hand, you can see it disappears down there because it's just reflecting. That is crazy. Engineering at its finest. Nissan Sentra here, and I'm doing a little oil change, and I'm doing the brakes all around. So it already got new pads and rotors up front, and back here I'm doing the drums, as you can see. So it's gonna get new shoes and new drums back here and new hardware kit. Now this spring right here, everyone knows this thing is a pain. Well, at least for me, it's a pain in the butt. There's been times where I spend 30-40 minutes trying to get this thing on. It's a freaking nightmare depending on how stiff the spring is. So on the other side, I want to say I fought with this for about 20 minutes before I finally got it to go on. You got to get it to go on to this hoop right here. And yeah, the other side, I fought with it. So I decided to modify one of my tools because after all these years, I have not, maybe there is a tool that exists for this already, but I haven't been able to find one. So I bought this plier a while ago, a few months ago, for this exact purpose. I can modify it, and you can see it's naturally closed, and when you squeeze it, it opens, okay, instead of the other way around. And it has a relatively flat face on this side. It's for I believe it's for snap rings, okay, to open up snap rings. But as you can see, I cut a slot in it right there, and I'm gonna have to reinforce it. There isn't much material right there. I think I'm just gonna put some weld on it. I'm gonna show you what I made this for, okay? And I had already been struggling on this side for about 10 minutes to try to get this on, and just I couldn't get it, all right? And the first time I tried it, guess what? It worked like a charm. So easy that I took it back off just so I could show you guys. So remember, if you see this anywhere else, just remember you saw it here first. You know, this spring has to come back to get this on here. And it could be a real fight. Just like that. Go ahead and open it up. Look at all this space this gives you. This spring is so stiff, you don't normally get this much space to work with. So now that the plier is holding it, you simply grab this piece, and look at that, it's on there. It's on. Look how easy that was. I should have made this a long time ago. I'm telling you, this is the reason why I bought these pliers, because I had intentions of making a tool like this. I just wasn't sure if it was going to work. You can see it got real thin on both sides right there from cutting into it. So I think I'm going to put some weld on this side and on this side to reinforce it. But this right here made this whole tool worth it. It sucks when it's snowing like this, because after you do brakes, you can't really test the brakes. You know, the car just slides everywhere as soon as you tap the brakes. So one thing I noticed is this thing has some roaring wheel bearings up front. So that sucks, because she had her front brakes grinding. So she had that noise going on, and now that the brakes are fixed, she's got wheel bearings that are just making a ton of noise. So it's almost like the car didn't even get fixed. Hopefully you guys could hear that wheel bearing. That guy back there just freaking ate the stop sign. He couldn't stop, so he just kept on going. The trick to that is start slowing down a lot further back, you know, because of hazardous conditions, but people don't give a shit. You know, the other day I saw, okay, so I'm pulling up and some guy had just got rear-ended. I mean, like, literally just got rear-ended. Like, it was like 2 cars before me. So by the time I get to the car, you know, there's pieces all over the floor. And there's only one car at the scene of the accident. It's the car that got hit. And the guy gets out his car and he's looking all confused and blah blah blah, right? So I guess the person who hit him fled the scene. What's funny is it looks like they busted their radiator from rear-ending that car, because from the scene of the accident, for like as much as I was willing to follow for like the next freaking 4 blocks, you could see a clear trail of antifreeze. I'm sure if you were Detective Pikachu, you would just go ahead and follow that trail, and I'm sure it'll lead you to the person who hit your car. But that's it for this car. I got onto a main street where there isn't so much snow. It's more, you know, you could actually test the brakes and the car stops perfectly fine. The front wheel bearings are shot, and that's about it. Got this Ford Focus here. I don't know what it is. It's probably like a 2002, something like that. Someone woke me up out of my beauty sleep today, and God knows I need all the sleep I could get. You know, it was like, you know, real early. It's in the afternoon. So anyway, someone came knocking on my door. Hey, there's a car parked in the corner. The brakes went out. The pedal goes all the way to the floor. We tried that in brake fluid, and the fluid just like never ending. It just keeps draining out. So I pulled it into the garage. We actually have a busted brake line. It's actually right there. If you push the brake pedal, you see it spraying out of the line. So thankfully the line goes from here to the backside right here. So it's a relatively short line. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock this out and get the brakes working again. Right, so here goes the line that came off the car. I cut both ends off right at the fittings. It's just way easier to get them off. You know why mess with a wrench and risk rounding them off and then it turn into a nightmare? just go ahead and cut it off, and now you can put a socket on it. Well, obviously this one I had to replace because the little piece of line that goes through the fitting on this one was just, I couldn't get it out. The one on this side came out without any issues, so I'm going to reuse it. I like to reuse the original ones that came off the car. I'm just going to put it in the wire wheel and try to clean it up as best as I can. But the front one gets a brand new fitting. So this is the line I have to replicate. As you can see, it's a really small line. Just using one of my new tools here. So I had this line coiled up, and you can see how it's straightening out the line. So yeah, pretty cool. And as you can see, I have just about everything I need to make this line. I don't need to use all of this line. I'm just gonna go ahead and finish putting the fittings on it, doing the flares, and bending it to its shape. So here goes the new line right here, all made up. I used a flaring tool, and if we look at the flares right here, if I could get this to focus, you see it's got, this car uses a traditional bubble flare, and both of the flares came out perfect using this flaring tool. I love this thing. It's absolutely just amazing. So I did a great job at flaring the tools, and I've already test fitted this thing on the car and it fits perfectly, so I'll show you that right now. So as you can see, it fits very nicely. It doesn't interfere with anything. It's not touching anything, and I think it's going to do just fine. The final thing I want to do, which I already did, was clean everything with brake parts cleaner. So the fittings on the vehicle that are going to accept the new line, I made sure to spray the hell out of them with brake parts cleaner to maybe get out any debris that might have fallen inside of there. And I even cleaned this line, the fittings right here, and I even sprayed inside the line with brake parts cleaner to clean out anything that might have fallen in the process of deburring the line before I made the flares. So everything looks good, and I'm just gonna go ahead, pop it on the car. And once I'm done bleeding the brakes and everything is good, I'm going to go ahead and spray the new line with a CRC corrosion inhibitor. Now this line doesn't really need it because it's not going to rot away like a steel line would. But it doesn't hurt to have some extra corrosion protection on the line. So have you ever made a brake line and figured, cool, I'm all done, and then you realize, hold on, I need to bleed the system somehow, and then you look at the bleed valve and it's completely corroded? Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me. I forgot all about it, and I'm like, crap. So this thing is the one that came out, and it's completely rounded off, and it was rusted in there good. Had to pull out the torch and everything, and yeah, it was this close to not being able to get this thing out. So I'm glad it came out, but I don't have really any of these in stock. I really don't carry them, but I have a few of them that I pulled off other cars, and none of them match up. So I'm gonna see what I could do to save this one, even if I have to weld a larger nut on the outside here. Don't know if that's really gonna work. I'd probably just make a trip up to AutoZone and see if I could find some of these in stock. Here's a monstrosity I came up with. So I ended up grinding off the 10mm hex, and enough so I could fit a nut over it. And then as you can see on the back side, I kind of tack welded the nut on here. I cleaned up the threads, and I already test fitted it. It fits well. So this thing now has a 14mm on it, and I tried to push it as far back as I can so that I could have a little bit of space right there on the head to hopefully get a like a rubber tube on it while I'm trying to bleed the brakes. That's why I tried to leave some of the head poking out like that. Hope that makes sense. So here goes a new part installed, and as you can see, it's threaded in. So now it's going to work just fine, and now it has a 14mm head on it. And don't worry, I did start looking into getting a variety pack of these. I know what they're called, I'm just at a loss for words right now. I'm not gonna worry about that. But I did start looking into getting some of these different types so I could just keep some of them in stock. For situations like this where I don't have to MacGyver things, but this should work for this car. So I'm gonna go ahead and start filling up the brake fluid, and we'll start bleeding it. So I am just about done here. I bled out the brakes. We now have a pedal. It feels nice and firm. And we have no leaks at all in any of my new connections, which is here and right here. No leaks at all. And I was able to bleed using this thing, and that's it. It's pretty much all set. Like I said, the pedal feels good, so I'm gonna go ahead, put the wheel back on it, and this car is gonna get out of here. Honestly, making a line was the easy part. Bleeding all the air out of the system, you know, from them driving it after the line busted, that's the most difficult part. So we're done here. And no, I didn't forget to spray everything with the CRC, so I've already gone ahead and did that. This one's all set. Popping the wheel on right now. We'll get this turd out of here. Alright, so just taking this Ford Focus out for a test drive, and the brakes feel good. Everything's all set. The owner's gonna come pick it up very soon.